The letter trembled in my hand as I read it one last time. 5 years of friendship and business condensed into 2 pages of legal termination. I slid it into the drawer, just as Rachel pushed through the glass door, her blonde bun messier than usual, dark circles under her expressive eyes. She carried 2 coffees like she did every Tuesday morning, steam curling into the autumn chill of River's Bend. Her smile faltered when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the coffees on my desk where I kept my personal copies of everything. Our invoices, our contracts, the evidence of what was really happening at Bright Spark Marketing. I'm Maya Collins, co-owner of Bloom and Grow Marketing, sitting in our office in River's Bend. 5 years ago, Rachel Peterson and I started this business together after becoming friends working at a larger agency in Hollow County. Her blonde hair always pulled back in a messy bun, her expressive eyes lighting up with creative ideas we turned into campaigns for small businesses across the region. Lately, though, Rachel's been different. The Tuesday morning coffee ritual she started became sporadic. Deadlines slipped through cracks she used to catch. Last month, when we pitched to Bright Spark Marketing, the biggest client we'd ever landed, Rachel missed the final meeting because she said she was stuck in traffic. She wasn't. Bright Spark signed with another agency last week, leaving a hole in our quarterly projections that still stings when I think about it. I looked from the termination letter in my drawer to the personal copies I kept on my desk. Our partnership agreement, invoices from Bright Spark, email chains showing who missed what when. Somewhere in there was a clause for situations just like this. Rachel set down my coffee, the steam curling around her worried expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice tight. The coffee Rachel made me that morning had a burnt taste she usually avoided. She'd been staying later, I noticed, but somehow we were falling further behind. The Tuesday before our big presentation for Green Thumb Garden Supplies, Rachel promised she'd finalize the deck by Monday. When Monday arrived, the conference room table held only empty coffee cups and a proposal with a coffee ring stain covering the crucial metrics slide. I texted her Sunday evening, asking if everything was set. Her reply came hours later. "All good, just running behind." Green Thumb threatened to walk unless we could reschedule for Thursday. I called them myself, promising a discount I hadn't cleared with Rachel first. Her desk phone showed 27 missed calls from Mom that week. The voicemail light blinked red, a constant reminder. By October, the pattern was clearer. Rachel missed the deadline for Hollow County Harvest Festival's social media campaign. The contract penalty cost us nearly $3,000. A post-it note on my monitor read, "Sorry, can we extend 24 hours? Promise it's done." Her handwriting was messier than usual, the letters of promise squeezed together. I agreed, even though we had another deadline breathing down our necks. The subcontractor charged us a rush fee that Rachel never reimbursed. Our system for tracking shared documents became my lifeline. While official records were scattered across cloud folders, I kept my own copies in a blue accordion file on my desk. Each invoice, each contract, each email thread I printed and organized by client. My personal copy of the Hollow County contract showed Rachel's digital signature timestamped at 2:17 a.m., 3 days after it was due. The official version in our system had been backdated to show 11:45 p.m. the night before. No one else noticed. No one else was looking. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Rachel took a personal call during our budget meeting. Her phone screen lit up with a photo of a little boy I recognized as her nephew. She waved it away, but I heard her say, "Is Emma okay?" Before stepping into the hallway. The office grew cold with the door open, November air seeping in while we waited. When she returned, our CFO Derek cleared his throat and asked if we could get back to the numbers. Rachel's eyes were red, but she nodded quickly, clicking her pen too fast against her notepad. A week later, the incident with Bright Spark happened. I pulled up my personal copy of the calendar invitation, sent 3 weeks prior, confirmed by Rachel the day before. My own notes showed she'd agreed to handle the follow-up questions about their branding refresh. The termination letter from Bright Spark sat on my desk, the amount circled in red ink, $12,500. That quarter's projection suddenly had a hole the size of a small pickup truck. I checked Waze. There was no traffic on her route that morning. I even drove it myself at the exact time she claimed to be stuck. "What's wrong?" Rachel asked, setting my coffee down. Steam curled around her worried expression. "Our biggest client just went to another agency," I said, keeping my voice steady. Rachel blinked. "Bright Spark, but I thought we had that in the bag." "We did," I said, pulling out my personal copies. The stack made a soft thud against the wood. Their termination letter arrived yesterday, and the calendar invite shows you confirmed attendance yesterday at 9:15 a.m. That's impossible, Rachel said, her voice tight. I was stuck in traffic. Everyone knows Highway 7 backs up near the river. Waze showed clear roads the entire time, I said. And Mark from Hollow County Coffee saw your car at the grocery store at 10:30 a.m. He sent me a picture. Rachel's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Why are you keeping track of my every move? What is this, a surveillance operation? I'm keeping track of business, I said, my fingers tracing the edge of our partnership agreement. Page 7, Section 3, Paragraph 2. It's called documentation. You don't trust me, Rachel accused, her eyes searching mine. You've always micromanaged everything. Not everything, I said, opening to the clause in question. Just the parts that affect our business and our friendship. The clause about removing a partner isn't about friendship, Rachel snapped. It's about termination. Only if both parties agree, I said quietly. And there's another option here. Rachel's expression changed then. Something fell away, leaving behind exhaustion I hadn't seen before. I can't do this right now, she said, reaching for her coat. Not today. You need to, I said, my voice softer than before. We need to fix this. Rachel stopped at the door, her hand on the handle. You think this is about work, Maya? You really think that's all this is about? I didn't answer. Instead, I slid my personal copies of everything into my leather planner and snapped it shut. The sound echoed in the suddenly quiet office. Rachel looked from the planner to my face, and for a moment, I thought she might say something more. Instead, she pulled the door closed behind her, leaving me alone with the papers that told a different story than the one we'd been telling ourselves. The partnership agreement sat open on my desk, page 7, section 3, paragraph 2 highlighted in yellow. My own personal copy, the one no one else in the office knew existed. The clause about financial penalties was buried deep in section 7 of our partnership agreement, something Rachel had insisted on adding during our second negotiation meeting. My finger traced the neat, typed words. In the event of repeated missed commitments affecting business operations, the offending partner shall compensate the business for actual losses incurred, plus a penalty of 25% of the value of the affected project. 3 years ago, Rachel had argued this was fair, necessary even. Today, seeing it in my personal copy, the words felt like a lifeline. The meeting on Monday had cost us the not account, $12,500. The Tuesday proposal deadline had been missed because Rachel had called in sick again. My thumb brushed the paper, feeling the slight texture where the ink had bled through from the page before. The office smelled of coffee and regret, the autumn light filtering through the window casting long shadows across my desk. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was about Rachel, and this clause gave me leverage without an exit. The next morning, I started drafting what I called our reliability assurance policy, based on that clause. My leather planner was already worn thin around the edges, perfect for this. I wrote at my kitchen table with a mug of tea growing cold beside me. The autumn chill had seeped through the window pane, and I pulled my cardigan tighter around my shoulders. Each sentence carried careful weight. This couldn't feel punitive, just practical. The policy outlined how we would track commitments, document missed deadlines, and calculate compensation using the exact language from Section 7. My personal copy of the partnership agreement sat open beside my laptop, its highlighted clause serving as my anchor. By Tuesday morning, the policy was finished. I printed 2 copies on thick paper, the kind that doesn't curl when humidity hits. The printer hummed in the corner of my office, the sound comforting in its familiarity. Outside, leaves skittered against the pavement, occasional gusts rattling the glass of my second-story window overlooking Main Street in Rivers Bend. I placed my copy in a blue accordion folder labeled Personal, Bright Spark Docs, alongside a separate folder for client contracts, expense reports, and correspondence. This was my insurance policy against chaos, though I didn't call it that even to myself. Rachel arrived at 10:30, as usual. Her blonde hair escaped its messy bun, strands clinging to her face despite the building's thermostat cranked too high again. The office smelled faintly of the chai latte she always brought, cinnamon and cardamom cutting through the usual coffee and paper scent. "Morning," she said, dropping her bag with a thud that made me flinch despite myself. "You look serious. Did something else go wrong with the not account?" "I have something to show you," I said, sliding one of the printed policies across my desk. Her eyes widened as she scanned the heading. "This looks formal," she said, her voice tight. The office air conditioner kicked on with a groan that rattled the hanging plant in the corner. "It's based on our partnership agreement," I explained, keeping my tone even. "Specifically Section 7. Rachel's fingers traced the edge of the paper. "You're implementing penalties for what happened with Nod and Tuesday." Her eyes wouldn't meet mine, fixed instead on the ficus plant that needed watering again. The dried leaves were brittle, curled at the edges, reminding me of how things had been between us lately. "We need accountability," I said, pushing my chair back to stand by the window. The maple outside had turned a brilliant red, flaming against the gray November sky. "Bright spark can't survive these losses." "This feels extreme," Rachel protested, her voice rising. "We're partners, not adversaries." "Agreed," I said, returning to my desk. "That's why I made sure the policy references the clause you insisted on adding during our second negotiation meeting." I opened my personal copy to page 7, Section 3, Paragraph 2. Rachel's eyes darted to the highlighted text, her fingers pausing midair. "I don't remember that being about." Her voice trailed off, her gaze fixed on the paper. Outside, a delivery truck backfired on Main Street, making us both jump slightly. The noise seemed to break something in Rachel's hesitation. "It was fair, you said," I reminded her softly. "Necessary even, 3 years ago." Rachel stared at the highlighted words, her face pale against the blue of her blouse. "I did say that," she whispered. The office clock ticked loudly above the door, counting seconds between us that felt like hours. The silence stretched until she finally reached for a pen from her own planner, the identical leather one she'd picked out with me during our office supply shopping spree 6 months ago. Her hand trembled slightly as she uncapped it. The scent of ink filled the small space between us. "So what happens now?" she asked, the pen hovering above the signature line. "We start with Monday," I said. "The not account." Her pen wavered, the tip threatening to leave a blot on the pristine paper. The autumn sun shifted suddenly, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air between us, each particle carrying potential resolution or the continuation of what couldn't go on. Rachel looked from the pen to my face, then back to the highlighted clause in the agreement. Her breath caught as she finally put pen to paper, the signature small but unmistakable on the dotted line. The pen scratched against the paper as Rachel signed, the sound sharp in the quiet office. "With the not account," I said, sliding over the document I'd kept in my own leather planner, separate from the official copies. "Every receipt, every invoice are personal copies of everything. That way, we both have the same information without waiting on the main system." She nodded, her fingers tracing the embossed logo on her own notebook, identical to mine, though her pages were dog-eared and smudged with coffee rings. I slid another paper across the desk. "And this," I said, "is the alternative. You handle client relations, I take the back-end operations. We both keep our own document sets. No overlap, no crossing paths on the stressful parts." Her eyes welled up, something I'd seen too many times lately, always dismissed as stress. "The panic attacks," she whispered, her voice catching. I thought I was just failing at this. The confession hung between us like the scent of fallen leaves coming through the window. She finally looked up, her eyes clear for the first time in months. "Is that really okay, that I step back from some things? Is it okay that we're still friends?" I countered, watching as she straightened her posture, the weight of something heavy lifting from her shoulders. Outside, a car horn blared and we both flinched, just like earlier that day when the truck backfired. But this time, when she reached for her pen again, her hand was steady. The autumn light caught the dust motes dancing in our bright spark office. 6 months since Rachel started therapy, her planner, now pristine and organized, sat open on her desk. No coffee rings this time. "Q3 projections are done," she said, handing me a folder. I tapped the 3-ring binder on my shelf, our system working seamlessly. Same numbers, different copies. Outside, leaves crunched as someone hurried past. I watched Rachel's steady hand signing a client invoice, unthinkable months ago. The relief in her shoulders told me more than words. We'd found balance without losing each other. But as she reached for the espresso machine, I hesitated, wondering about the Main Street account that might push her limits. Protect or trust.